I'll begin my speech now. Dear colleagues, today in my second speech, I'm going to talk about the BBC's controversial coverage of the death of Prince Philip. Now, you might be wondering to yourself, why would the state-run BBC's coverage of the death of a monarch in a parliamentary monarchy be controversial? Well, it was record-breaking in terms of the number of complaints received by the BBC. They received at least 110,994 complaints. And of course, this is the official number of complaints, of formal complaints received, because many people, much like myself, moaned and groaned but did nothing about it. So what was all this coverage about? On Friday, the 9th of April at 12 p.m, the death of Prince Philip, or the Duke of Edinburgh, was announced. This wasn't exactly unexpected, so the BBC had lots of material at the ready. BBC One and BBC Two cleared their schedule of Friday night staples such as Eastenders and Masterchef, and proceeded to simultaneously broadcast pre-recorded tributes by the children of the Duke of Edinburgh. It was blanket coverage of the death of the Duke of Edinburgh on the two main TV channels on the BBC. Now, generally, when something of national significance happens in the UK, Britons turn to BBC One. But this time, it seemed that they were not that impressed, because the audience on Friday night for BBC One dropped by 6% compared to the week before. And for BBC Two, it was a disaster because their audience dropped by 2/3. Other BBC channels like BBC Four either went off air or displayed messages telling viewers to turn to BBC One. On the radio, pre-recorded tributes were played instead of the normal output. And if you glimpsed at the website, you would have seen a barrage of information about the death. So why did people complain? The BBC received so many complaints that they actually opened up a dedicated web form to make it easier for people to complain. Some of the complaints were about, for example, the fact that the coverage had taken over the evening's broadcasting to the exclusion of other things, such as the ongoing pandemic that you might or might not have heard about. So while they were okay with some coverage of the death of Prince Philip, they weren't okay with the extent to which it was covered. Another person suggested that they could have used just one channel for the coverage and let everyone else listen to the music or watch the programs that they wanted to. However, not all of the complaints were about the extent of the coverage. In fact, about 400 people complained about the inclusion of Prince Andrew in the tributes, given his alleged connections to the late disgraced businessman Jeffrey Epstein. Furthermore, 233 people also complained that the news presenters' clothes were not respectful enough because they weren't wearing all black. And just to show you that criticism would come from all sides, 116 people actually complained that the BBC had made it too easy to complain about their coverage. But why is all this important? Does it reflect the sentiment of Britons vis-a-vis the royal family? I think that, well, in my experience, when you're abroad, people assume that everyone in the UK supports the royal family, and this clearly is not the case. But I would also suggest that people who maybe in the past were indifferent, who were ambivalent towards the royal family, I think that even they are getting a bit fatigued with it all. One cause might be the Prince Andrew saga. And I was personally taken aback when I started reading a BBC article, and only a few lines from the start, there were words from Prince Andrew about his wonderful father and celebrating his life like a loyal son. I mean, how could the BBC be so irresponsible and insensitive? The last time that Prince Andrew appeared on television was basically to explain why he didn't have to apologise for his alleged participation in links to Jeffrey Epstein and his underage prostitution ring. Prince Andrew is a disgraced figure, I think, for most people in the UK, and not many have much respect for him anymore. The second possible cause is the Harry and Meghan saga. Now, these two young royals that everyone probably knows more than any of the other royals, they could have been a glimmer of hope for the royal family. They could have been the royals to help the UK youth relate again to the royal family. Maybe they could have modernised this sluggish institution, but instead they got out as soon as they could. And they left the royal family looking like an old dog gripping to the past. The third and final reason that I think the British people are a bit fatigued with the royal family, and I have to say that there are many more, but obviously time is of the essence, so this will be my final reason, is that in general, people are struggling. For normal people, it's crisis after crisis after crisis. Even before the pandemic, things weren't great for a lot of people. Now, during the pandemic, we're over a year into it, millions of people have lost loved ones, they've lost their jobs, and now I think many are losing faith in an antiquated system that just refuses to get with the times. To conclude, I would say that I think to an extent, the number of complaints that the BBC received does probably reflect greater issues at play in UK society. The monarchy is clearly out of touch with the society that it claims to represent. And during the pandemic, thousands upon thousands of lives have been lost. Therefore, blanket coverage of the death of one privileged man who belongs to an institution that seems like something plucked out of the 15th century might just be a little bit excessive. Thank you.